After 11 years of build-up and 23 movies, the Marvel Cinematic Universe's Infinity Saga comes to an end this summer with Spider-Man Far From Home. Or does it? You see, there's a theory that the elusive and mysterious 7th Infinity Stone from the comic books, the Ego Stone, or Ego Gem as it's known in the source material, will be an important MacGuffin in MCU Phase 4. In this video, we'll explain why that's the case and what it might mean for the franchise in terms of its forthcoming narrative.
Oh my god.
So, what exactly is the Ego Gem? Well, it was introduced in the 1995 crossover story between Marvel's Avengers and Malibu's Ultra Force. In the story, the 6 original Infinity Gems were taken from under the noses of the Infinity Watch by the vampire-like villain Rune, who took them into the Ultraverse, the designated name of the Malibu Comics universe, where it was revealed that a long-lost 7th gem also resided. Loki found the Ego Gem in the Ultraverse during the story, when the God of Mischief went there to retrieve the others, and during the same story, the powerful item contacted and took the powerful Avenger known as Circe as its host. It was also revealed that it actually contained the consciousness of the powerful cosmic being known as Nemesis, the creator of the Infinity Gems, who, due to her unbearable loneliness, committed a form of suicide by splitting herself into what were initially thought to be 6 fragments that went on to become the gems themselves. In the event that the Ego Gem was reunited with the other 6 Infinity Gems, Nemesis would be reborn, which happened in the story, although the collaborative efforts of the Avengers and Ultra Force defeated her in spite of the fact that she was as powerful as all the Infinity Gems combined. It's all very complicated, but it's also extremely interesting nonetheless. Well, there's a theory that the Ego Gem, or Ego Stone as it would no doubt be known as in the MCU, is set to play a major part in Phase 4 of the franchise. But why does that theory exist? Well, as it happens, there are actually a number of very plausible reasons why. The first reason is that in the comics, the Ego Gem was found in another universe where it had long been lost, to the extent that even the most ancient beings had absolutely no clue it even existed. So there's a precedent for its existence becoming common knowledge when other universes come into play. Given that the power of the snap is said to have torn a hole in reality in the MCU, the concept of the multiverse has now become a thing in the franchise, and that could lead to our favorite live-action characters hopping between different universes on a much more regular basis. It could be the case, therefore, that the MCU's version of the item, the Ego Stone, has been lost in another universe for many years, and the snap could have opened up a doorway to the universe in which it now resides, making its introduction into the franchise more plausible than ever before. But that provides the MCU with a bit of a problem. If it needs to be reunited with the other 6 Infinity Stones, how is that possible, given that they were destroyed in Avengers Endgame? Well, that's not actually so much of a problem anymore, is it? Not now that the concept of time travel has been introduced into the franchise. Should any character in possession of the Ego Stone wish to reunite it with the power, space, time, reality, mind, and soul stones, all they need to do is travel back in time, just like the titular heroes did in Avengers Endgame, and pluck them from a different timeline. Which brings us to the question of who would want to do that, and who would have the capability. Well, it just so happens that Disney's acquisition of Fox gives Marvel Studios the rights to 2 characters who answer both of those questions: Dr. Doom and Kang the Conqueror. Both Doom and Kang are power-hungry villains with the ability to time travel thanks to their advanced technology. Doom in particular is exceptionally power-hungry and can often be seen coveting powerful items in the comic books, such as the Infinity Gems and Cosmic Cubes, while Kang in particular is notorious for his time-traveling adventures, having originated in the 31st century. Fans have been wanting to see both of those villains in Marvel's flagship movie franchise for some time, and the introduction of either of the pair would be the perfect excuse to bring the Fantastic Four into the MCU to combat them, which would be a nice bonus. It really does make sense to bring the Infinity Stones back. After all, Tilda Swinton's Ancient One explained in Avengers Endgame that removing them from a timeline can result in dire consequences. Thanos destroying them in the main MCU timeline could have some knock-on effects that are yet to be discovered, perhaps even worse than the tears in reality that have opened doors to other universes. With that in mind, the Avengers may hatch a plan to retrieve them from other timelines and duplicate them, ensuring their own timeline has Infinity Stones in it once more, before returning the originals yet again to their original timelines. But involving the Infinity Stones in the MCU's driving narrative yet again would undeniably be boring, so something would definitely need to be done to make them different to before and exciting again. That's where the 7th one could come in. Following the epic events of Avengers Infinity War and Avengers Endgame, Phase 4 could feel like something of a come-down if the MCU suddenly becomes more small-scale. But adding a 7th Infinity Stone to the franchise would certainly solve that problem and up the ante as far as power is concerned. Very few beings or objects could truly trump the original 6 Infinity Stones in terms of power. In fact, there's only really the Living Tribunal, the One Above All, and the Heart of the Universe that could definitely do. But adding another one certainly would. Not only by default would it increase the amount of power being thrown around, it would also potentially introduce the aforementioned Nemesis to the franchise. So let's tell you a little more about her. As previously touched upon, she created the Infinity Gems in the comics when she grew bored of her own lonely existence and broke herself up into several powerful fragments. Reuniting all 7 gems brings her back to life, which is what happened in the Avengers Ultra Force crossover. The Marvel characters involved in that story also indicate that her arrival in the MCU is possible. You see, it involved the Avengers, Loki, and the Grand Master, all of whom are already in the franchise. It involved the Eternal Cersei, who's expected to be the main character in the upcoming Eternals movie in the franchise. It involved the Living Tribunal and has been name-dropped in the franchise. And it involved the Silver Surfer, who, following Disney's acquisition of Fox, is one of the characters expected to arrive in the franchise imminently.
Oh, that is cool.
It almost sounds as though the MCU is proactively building towards the arrival of Nemesis. Although she was ultimately defeated in that crossover story, the fact is she possesses the power of all 7 Infinity Gems, meaning she can quite literally do anything she imagines with a mere thought. Heck, even Thanos had to close his fist to use the power of the Infinity Stones. Nemesis only needs to think to alter reality on a universal scale. Other than that, very little is known about her because that crossover was her only real appearance in the comics. That does provide a potential stumbling block as far as the movies are concerned, however. The fact that she was created for a comic that was a shared publication between Marvel and Malibu could mean that she's not a bona fide Marvel property, which in turn could mean that Marvel Studios doesn't have the rights to her. But we all know that's a problem that can be fixed. Just look at Spider-Man and the characters who were previously owned by Fox. The fact that she's so mysterious could also play into Marvel Studios' hands. What better way to increase excitement about Phase 4 than by introducing a character with barely any comic book precedent? Any movie she appeared in would be completely unpredictable, and fans would barely have anything to base their theories on. Of course, this theory also opens up the idea of potential crossovers in the MCU, which would, of course, definitely up the ante as far as Phase 4 was concerned. Should Marvel Studios introduce the Ego Gem over the course of the next few movies, where exactly would it be hidden? Well, if they stuck to the source material, they could place it in the Ultraverse and introduce the likes of Ultra Force, Rune, and Lord Pumpkin going forward. But the potential as far as that would be concerned would actually be limitless. They could hide it in the Ultimate Universe, in the Cancerverse, in the X-Men movie universe, somewhere in the Spider-Verse, or even in the DC Extended Universe, leading to some of the most epic crossovers in movie history. But that is, of course, an utter pipe dream at the moment. It could turn out that the likes of Eric Selvig's chalkboard in 2014's Thor: The Dark World, which had the names of several other realities written on it, was leading up to the discovery of the Ego Gem in an alternate universe all along. It's not as though the MCU is averse to long-form foreshadowing after all. The MCU being the MCU also means the Ego Gem could be introduced as a completely new and movie-original entity in the franchise, i.e., Nemesis might not actually be involved in its existence at all. So many characters and concepts have been adapted from the comic books with absolutely no similarities to the source material whatsoever. So the live-action version of the Ego Gem could be a completely original creation. Just look at the MCU versions of the Supreme Intelligence, Stormbreaker, Dormammu, Vision, Whiplash, or the Mandarin for proof of that.
Just a roll? The Mandarin? See, it's not real.
The Ego Stone could house the consciousness of a completely new being, or have powers that were never depicted in the comics at any point. And again, that's an exciting prospect in itself because fans would have no idea what to expect. But there's one final and very exciting part to this theory, and it involves a certain character from 2017's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The legendary Kurt Russell of course played the incredibly powerful Ego in that movie, a celestial being who, with complete control over his molecules, was able to form an entire planet for himself and plan to take over the universe. In the MCU, the Celestials have strong connections to the Infinity Stones. We saw Esson the Searcher using the Power Stone to destroy planets in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie back in 2014. So could the Ego Gem's arrival in the franchise potentially indicate a return for Russell's character? MCU fans have loved coming up with theories regarding the existing Infinity Stones. Just think about all those theories about the Soul Stone, for example. Fans had questioned if it was in Heimdall's possession. Was it behind Odin's eye patch? Was it in Wakanda? Was Captain America the human embodiment of the Soul Stone? With that in mind, can you imagine the theories that would be conceived in the event that an Ego Stone was introduced to the franchise? Fans would immediately link the item to the character of the same name. So maybe, just maybe, the 7th Infinity Stone will contain the consciousness of Peter Quill's father and he'll be set up for a dramatic return. In spite of the fact that he was a villain, Ego was an incredibly popular character amongst fans, and Kurt Russell drew widespread praise amongst critics for his performance. So most MCU enthusiasts would love to see him back on the big screen in Phase 4, and Thanos' death would give him a huge opportunity to finally succeed in his plan to conquer the cosmos. Heck, even Ego mentioned the Infinity Stones in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. His line about the Power Stone was actually one of the very first things he said. So could this have been foreshadowing his connection to the 7th?
And when I heard of a man from Earth who held an Infinity Stone in his hand without dying, I knew you must be the son of the woman I loved.
So you see, it's hard to deny that there really is plenty of evidence and plausibility for the idea that the Ego Stone could be introduced going forward in the MCU. Of course, if it does appear as a major plot point in Phase 4, given that it has the word ego in it, it's just a shame Tony Stark won't be around to use it.
Textbook narcissism. Agreed?
So what do you think of this theory? Will we see the 7th Infinity Stone in Phase 4 of the MCU? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to ScreenRant for more great videos like this one. We'll see you next time.